Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. Imagine a conflict where you've already won before the first blow is even struck. No wasted resources, no unnecessary casualties, and no scorched earth. This isn't just a dream for ancient generals. It is the ultimate psychological and strategic edge. Whether you are navigating a high-stakes corporate takeover, a competitive sports season, or even the complex social dynamics of your personal life, the reality remains the same. Life is a series of strategic encounters. Sun Tzu's The Art of War is not merely a military manual from the 5th century BCE, it is a profound philosophical treatise on the economy of conflict. Sun Tzu argues that conflict is an inevitable part of the human experience, but the art lies in mastering it through intellect rather than brute force. He posits that victory is a matter of information, psychology, and positioning. If you understand the terrain of your situation and the weather of the market or environment, you cannot be defeated. In this deep dive summary, we aren't just going to list ancient battle tactics. We are going to translate Sun Tzu's 13 chapters into a modern playbook for the 21st century. We will break down the context layer, why a text from ancient China remains the most cited book in modern business schools. The chapter breakdown, a meticulous look at planning, maneuvering, and the use of intelligence. The thematic pillars, exploring the core concepts of deception, energy, and adaptability. Practical application, how to use these war tactics to negotiate a better salary or lead a team through a crisis. Who should read this? This summary is designed for the strategic leader. If you are an entrepreneur looking to disrupt a market, a manager dealing with office politics, a student of psychology interested in human behavior, or anyone who feels like they are constantly fighting uphill, this is for you. This is for the person who wants to stop reacting to life and start outmaneuvering it. To truly grasp the art of war, we must step back from the modern boardroom and into the spring and autumn period of ancient China, circa 771 to 476 BCE. This was a time of absolute fragmentation. The central authority of the Zhou dynasty had collapsed, leaving a power vacuum that birthed hundreds of small states locked in a permanent state of existential dread. The author's journey. The book is attributed to Sun Tzu, Master Sun, a military general and strategist serving King Helu of the state of Wu. However, Sun Tzu wasn't just a soldier, he was a product of the 100 schools of thought. This was a golden age of Chinese philosophy where scholars traveled from kingdom to kingdom, offering rulers advice on how to survive. Sun Tzu's qualification didn't come from a love of violence, but from a desire to minimize it. In a world where war was becoming increasingly expensive and total, he realized that a state could bankrupt itself even in victory. He wrote this book as a survival guide for the state, arguing that the smartest way to win is to make the enemy realize that fighting you is a losing proposition. In Sun Tzu's time, warfare was transitioning from ritualistic chariot battles between aristocrats to massive infantry clashes involving conscripted peasants. The stakes had moved from honor to survival. Today, this book applies because we live in a hyper-competitive, information-heavy landscape. In the age of social media, global trade, and rapid-fire communication, the battlefield is often digital or psychological. We are constantly managing resources, seeking a competitive edge, and trying to predict the moves of rivals. Sun Tzu's focus on information over impact is more relevant now than it was 2,500 years ago. Key definitions. To understand the rest of this summary, you must internalize these three concepts. Tao, the way. In a military sense, this refers to the moral law, Ma. It is the degree to which a people or a team are in total harmony with their leader. Without Tao, no strategy can succeed. Shih, strategic momentum. This is the force or potential energy of a situation. Think of a round boulder at the top of a steep hill. Sun Tzu teaches how to create that potential energy so that when you move, the results are effortless and overwhelming. The void and the full. This is the principle of attacking where the enemy is weak, the void, and avoiding where they are strong, the full. It is the ultimate rule of efficiency. Book overview. At its core, The Art of War is not a book about how to fight. It is a book about how to succeed. While the vocabulary is filled with swords, chariots, and sieges, the underlying logic is a masterclass in systems thinking and resource management. Sun Tzu's primary thesis is that conflict is a costly, dangerous endeavor that should only be undertaken when victory is certain and the gains outweigh the losses. The main theme: efficiency through intelligence. The overarching theme of the book is the primacy of the mind over muscle. Sun Tzu argues that every battle is won or lost before it ever begins, based on the quality of the commander's calculations. He views war as a matter of vital importance to the state, and therefore, it must be governed by cold, hard logic, rather than emotion, ego, or the desire for glory. If you have to engage in a fair fight, you have already failed as a strategist. A true master of the art creates conditions so favorable that the opposition either surrenders, retreats, or is neutralized with minimal effort. What the book is trying to teach. The book seeks to instill a mindset of extreme adaptability. Sun Tzu teaches that there are no fixed patterns in war, just as water has no constant shape. He focuses on 3 critical lessons. 1. The importance of self-awareness and competitive intel. The famous dictum, "Know yourself and know your enemy," is the book's heartbeat. Most failures in business or life stem from a delusional view of one's own capabilities or a complete misunderstanding of the opponent or market. 2. The use of deception. Sun Tzu teaches that all warfare is based on deception. This isn't necessarily about being evil, it's about managing perceptions. By appearing weak when you are strong or near when you are far, you force your opponent to make mistakes based on false information. 3. The conservation of energy. Sun Tzu is obsessed with speed and brevity. He warns against protracted campaigns, noting that no country has ever benefited from a long war. In modern terms, this is the lean methodology: deliver results quickly, minimize burn rates, and avoid getting bogged down in attrition like endless lawsuits or price wars. Ultimately, the book teaches that victory is a byproduct of superior positioning. If you can position yourself where you are untouchable and your opponent is vulnerable, you have mastered the art. Chapter by chapter. Breakdown. Sun Tzu's masterpiece is divided into 13 chapters, each focusing on a specific aspect of strategy. To avoid copyright issues and provide unique value, I will interpret these ancient military lessons through a modern analytical lens, providing real-world examples for each. 1. Detail assessment and planning. Sun Tzu opens by stating that war is a matter of life and death, governed by 5 constant factors: the moral law, heaven, earth, the commander, and method. Before a single move is made, you must calculate your chances of success based on these variables. This is your pre-flight checklist. In business, the moral law is your company culture. Heaven and earth are the market trends and the physical/digital landscape. Before Netflix transitioned from DVDs to streaming, they assessed earth, internet speeds were increasing, and heaven, the timing of consumer boredom with late fees. They didn't just hope it would work, they calculated the shift. 2. Waging war. This chapter focuses on the economy of conflict. Sun Tzu warns that no country has ever benefited from a prolonged war. Victory should be swift to avoid draining resources. Focus on the burn rate. Whether it's a startup or a personal project, if it takes too long to see results, your troops, willpower, or employees will become exhausted. A patent war between tech giants often ends up costing more in legal fees than the patent is worth. The winner is often the one who settles quickly to return to innovation. 3. Strategic attack. The highest form of generalship is to balk the enemy's plans or break their alliances. Attacking their cities, a direct, head-on fight, is the worst possible option. Win through disruption, not destruction. Don't try to outspend a competitor, outthink them. Airbnb didn't build hotels to compete with Hilton. They attacked the strategy of the hotel industry by leveraging existing homes, rendering the competitor's massive real estate holdings a liability rather than an asset. 4. Tactical dispositions. Sun Tzu argues that invincibility lies in the defense, the possibility of victory in the attack. You must first make yourself impossible to defeat, then wait for the enemy to provide an opening. Build a moat. Secure your finances and your core product first. You can't win if you are vulnerable to a single bad month. Warren Buffett's investment strategy is purely Chapter 4. He looks for companies with unassailable moats, invincibility, and waits for the market to make a mistake, the opening, before he buys. 5. Energy, strategic momentum. This chapter introduces the concept of Shih, use direct, chung, forces to engage, and indirect Qi, forces to win. It's about the transformation of energy. Use the pivot. The direct force is your main product. The indirect force is the unexpected feature or marketing angle that actually captures the market. In a debate, you might use a standard argument, direct, to keep your opponent busy, while saving a gotcha statistic or a psychological framing, indirect, for the closing statement. 6. Weak points and strong. Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. This is about the flow of energy, hitting the void, where they aren't, and avoiding the full, where they are. Niche down. Don't compete for the strong, the mass market. Find the weak, the underserved subculture, and dominate it. Instead of trying to be the next Facebook, Discord succeeded by targeting gamers, a specific void that larger platforms were ignoring. Maneuvering. The difficulty of maneuvering is turning the devious into the direct and misfortune into gain. You must manage the physical and mental stamina of your team. Agility. In a fast-moving market, the team that can change direction without losing morale wins. When a PR crisis hits, a company that maneuvers quickly to apologize and fix the issue, turning misfortune into gain, often gains more brand loyalty than before the crisis. 8. Variation in tactics. A general must be able to adapt. Sun Tzu lists 5 dangerous faults of a leader, including recklessness and a delicacy of honor, being too sensitive to criticism. Emotional intelligence. A leader who is too proud to admit they were wrong will lead their team off a cliff. A CEO who refuses to kill a failing product line because it was their idea is suffering from the delicacy of honor. 9. The army on the march. This chapter provides practical signs of what the enemy is doing. If birds rise in flight, there is an ambush. If the enemy speaks in lowly terms but increases preparations, they are about to advance. Modern interpretation. Read the tells. Learn to spot the signs of a competitor's next move by watching their hiring patterns or social media shifts. If a competitor starts hiring heavily in a new region or niche, they aren't just growing, they are marching into your territory. 10. Terrain. Sun Tzu categorizes 6 types of terrain: accessible, entangling, temporizing, etc., and how to fight on each. You must understand the ground you stand on. Context is king. Selling a luxury car in a recession is different terrain than selling it during a boom. Amazon understands the terrain of logistics. By owning the warehouses and the delivery vans, they control the ground upon which the retail war is fought. 11. The 9 situations. This chapter deals with different levels of desperation. On desperate ground, where there is no retreat, you must fight with everything you have. Modern interpretation: burn the boats. Sometimes, to achieve a breakthrough, you have to remove the safety net, so your team has no choice but to succeed. When Elon Musk put his last remaining personal wealth into SpaceX and Tesla when both were failing, he put himself on desperate ground. The resulting focus led to the success of both Shih. The attack by fire. Sun Tzu discusses 5 ways of attacking with fire. Crucially, he warns, never move except it be for some design, never fight except the end be victory. Aggressive disruption. Using fire, viral marketing, aggressive price cutting is dangerous and can backfire. Only use it if you have a clear plan. A hostile takeover is an attack by fire. It's messy, expensive, and can destroy the company you're trying to buy if not handled with precision. 13. The use of spies. The final chapter argues that foreknowledge is the only thing that makes a great leader. You must invest in intelligence. Data science. In the modern world, spies are your data analysts, market researchers, and customer feedback loops. Companies like Netflix don't guess what shows to make. Their spies, algorithms, tell them exactly what users are watching, for how long, and when they pause. Core themes. To move beyond a simple list of chapters, we must look at the underlying engine of Sun Tzu's philosophy. The art of war functions on 3 major pillars that turn it from a military manual into a universal system for problem solving. Pillar 1, the principle of deception, managing perception. Sun Tzu famously wrote, "All warfare is based on deception." In a modern context, this is often misinterpreted as a call to be dishonest or fake. However, Sun Tzu's deeper point is about information asymmetry. In any competitive environment, the person with the most accurate information wins. Therefore, your goal is to ensure your opponent has inaccurate information. This forces them to waste resources, move in the wrong direction, or hesitate when they should strike. The mechanism. Sun Tzu suggests that when you are capable, you must appear incapable. When active, you must appear inactive. You are essentially creating a digital twin or a shadow of yourself for the world to see, while your true intentions remain hidden. The nuance. This isn't just about lying. It's about predictability. If you are predictable, you are easy to defeat. By using deception, you become formless. As Sun Tzu says, the ultimate in disposing one's troops is to be without ascertainable shape. Modern example. Think of a stealth startup. They operate in secret for years to prevent larger competitors from copying their features. By the time they reveal their true strength, they have already captured the patent landscape. Pillar 2. The concept of Shih, strategic momentum. Shih is perhaps the most difficult concept for Western audiences to grasp, yet it is the most powerful. It is often translated as momentum, potential, or circumstances. Sun Tzu uses the analogy of a log or stone. The nature of a log or stone is to remain motionless on level ground, and to move when on a slope. A great leader doesn't try to push their team or their agenda through sheer willpower. Instead, they tilt the ground. The problem. Most people try to win through brute force. They work harder, spend more, and scream louder. This leads to burnout and exhaustion. The solution. You must create a situation where victory is the natural, inevitable outcome of the environment. If you position your product perfectly in a market that is starving for it, you don't need a massive sales team. The slope of the market does the work for you. The nuance. Momentum is fragile. Sun Tzu warns that once you have Shih, you must maintain it through extraordinary, Qi, and direct, Chung forces. You use the expected to keep things steady and the unexpected to keep the momentum rolling. Pillar 3. The economy of conflict, the cost of victory. Sun Tzu is the world's first lean strategist. He argues that time is a resource more valuable than gold. Every day you spend in a conflict, whether it's a legal battle, a price war, or a toxic argument, you are losing, even if you eventually win. The problem: the sunk cost fallacy. Humans have a tendency to keep fighting simply because they have already invested so much. Sun Tzu rejects this completely. He believes that if a victory is going to cost too much, it is actually a defeat. The solution: the indirect approach. Instead of a head-on collision, you find the line of least resistance. You win by making the other side's position untenable without ever firing a shot. The nuance. This pillar leads to his most famous conclusion: the best victory is that which is won without a battle. In modern terms, this is monopoly or total brand dominance. When a brand becomes so synonymous with a service, like Googling something, the competition has been defeated without a war because the battle for the consumer's mind is already over. The synthesis: the formless leader. When you combine these pillars, deception, momentum, and economy, you arrive at Sun Tzu's ideal, the formless leader. This is someone who, 1. Analyzes the terrain, market/environment. 2. Hides their true intentions to avoid being countered. 3. Waits for the moment when the slope is steepest. 4. Strikes with such speed and efficiency that the conflict is over before the opponent realizes it began. Sun Tzu isn't teaching us how to be warriors. He is teaching us how to be architects of our own success. He wants us to stop being the stone that has to be pushed and start being the one who tilts the ground. Key lessons. Sun Tzu's wisdom survives because it addresses the unchanging nature of human psychology and competition. Here are the major takeaways tailored for a modern professional and social context. 1. Know your terrain. Environmental awareness. The lesson: you cannot win if you don't understand the rules of the game or the environment you are playing in. U.S. Example: a tech worker moving from a move fast and break things startup to a highly regulated government contractor. If they apply the same aggressive tactics in a conservative terrain, they will be neutralized by bureaucracy. Takeaway: audit your environment before you act. 2. Avoid the full, hit the void, efficiency. The lesson: never compete head-on where your opponent is strongest. Find the gap. U.S. Example: in a saturated job market, don't just apply through LinkedIn portals, the full. Instead, leverage a niche certification or a personal referral, the void, to bypass the competition. Takeaway: stop trying to outmuscle the leader. Outmaneuver them by going where they aren't looking. 3. The danger of ego, emotional discipline. The lesson: Sun Tzu warns that a short-tempered leader can be easily provoked. Anger is not a strategy, it is a vulnerability. U.S. example: in a high-stakes salary negotiation, if the employer makes a low-ball offer to rattle you, reacting with anger closes the door. Staying formless and calm allows you to pivot back to your value proposition. Takeaway: never make a permanent decision based on a temporary emotion. An insulted ego is the shortest path to a strategic blunder. 4. Victory through information, data over guesswork. The lesson: foreknowledge is the only way to ensure success. U.S. example: a marketing team using A/B testing and pixel tracking. They aren't guessing which ad works. They have spies, data, telling them exactly where the consumer's attention is. Takeaway: never make a permanent decision based on a temporary emotion. An insulted ego is the shortest path to a strategic blunder. Woo. The speed principle. brevity as an asset. The lesson: long-term friction leads to exhaustion. Finish tasks and resolve conflicts quickly. U.S. example: scope creep in corporate projects. A project that drags on for 18 months loses its Shih momentum and usually results in a subpar product and a burnt-out team. Takeaway: never make a permanent decision based on a temporary emotion. An insulted ego is the shortest path to a strategic blunder. 6. Capture, don't destroy. The lesson: it is better to capture a market or a company intact than to destroy it. U.S. example: in business acquisitions, a hostile takeover that destroys company morale, the moral law, often leaves the buyer with a hollow shell. A friendly merger that preserves culture is a Sun Tzu style victory. Takeaway: never make a permanent decision based on a temporary emotion. An insulted ego is the shortest path to a strategic blunder. 7. Use indirect paths, the flanking maneuver. The lesson: direct force is for engagement, indirect force is for winning. U.S. example: a brand doesn't just tell you their product is good, direct. They pay an influencer you trust to use it casually in a video, indirect. You are conquered without feeling like you were sold to. Takeaway: never make a permanent decision based on a temporary emotion. An insulted ego is the shortest path to a strategic blunder. Practical application: understanding the theory is one thing. Applying it in the modern landscape requires a shift in how you view your daily interactions. Here is how you can put Sun Tzu into practice immediately. How you can apply the ideas. The pre-meeting reconnaissance. Never walk into a meeting or interview cold. Use tools like LinkedIn, company annual reports, or industry news to understand the terrain and the commander, the person you're meeting. Knowing their current pain points is your foreknowledge. The silent pivot. If a project or investment isn't working, don't wage a long war against reality. Apply. Chapter 2. Waging War. Be willing to pivot or cut losses quickly to save your gold, time, and energy for a fight you can actually win. Strategic silence. In negotiations, use the formless approach. By listening more than you speak, you gather intelligence while your opponent reveals their dispositions, weaknesses, and desires. Real scenarios. Scenario A: conflict resolution. You have a difficult coworker. Instead of a direct confrontation, attacking a walled city, apply the indirect path. Find a common goal or a person they respect to bridge the gap. By capturing their cooperation rather than destroying their reputation, you maintain a healthy office environment and a future ally. Scenario B: market entry. You're launching a new product. Don't go head-to-head with a giant like Amazon or Google. Find the void, a specific customer need they are too big or too automated to address personally, and establish your Shih momentum there first. Mistakes to avoid. The sunk cost. Trap. Fighting a battle just because you've already spent time on it. Sun Tzu would tell you to retreat and regroup. Over-deception. In modern business, reputation is a core part of your Tao, moral law. If you use deception to the point where your own team or clients don't trust you, you have destroyed your foundation. Predictability. Avoid falling into fixed patterns. If you always use the same negotiation tactic or marketing hook, your rivals will eventually map your terrain and trap you. Critical analysis. The strongest point of the art of war is its focus on psychological victory. Sun Tzu was thousands of years ahead of his time in recognizing that conflict is won in the mind before it is won on the ground. His emphasis on avoiding attrition, the slow, grinding waste of resources, is a timeless lesson that remains the gold standard for efficient leadership. However, A critical look reveals certain limitations. The zero-sum bias. Sun Tzu wrote in an era of warring states where survival often meant someone else's total loss. In a modern interconnected economy, capturing the enemy whole is a great sentiment, but the book lacks the nuance of collaborative strategy or win-win scenarios found in modern game theory. Sometimes, transparency is a better strategy than deception. The ethics of deception. While all warfare is based on deception, applying this strictly in modern life can be toxic. In a world of social media and radical transparency, being caught in a deception can destroy your moral law, Tao, instantly. Sun Tzu's advice to be formless can easily be mistaken for being untrustworthy, which is a death sentence for a modern brand. Outdated logistics. While the philosophy is timeless, the specific tactical advice regarding fire attacks or chariots requires significant mental translation. For a casual reader, the heavy military metaphor can sometimes obscure the practical utility. Ultimately, Sun Tzu is a master of competition, but he is not a guide for community building. Use his tactics to win the game, but look elsewhere to learn how to build the team. The conclusion and action plan. Sun Tzu's The Art of War reminds us that the greatest warriors are those who never have to draw their swords. Success is not a matter of luck or sheer hustle. It is the result of meticulous calculation, emotional discipline, and the courage to be adaptable when the terrain changes. The cheat sheet summary. 1. Preparation is victory. If you haven't done the math before the meeting, you've already lost. 2. Economy of effort. Winning a long, drawn-out battle is a failure of strategy. Aim for swiftness. 3. Know the landscape. Understand your market, your boss, and your own weaknesses as deeply as your opponents. 4. Be formless. Don't let your competition or your ego box you into a predictable pattern. 5. Subdue without fighting. The ultimate goal is to create such a position of strength that the opposition yields by default. Who should read this? You will love this book if you are a pragmatist who values efficiency, logic, and long-term planning. It is a must-read for leaders, entrepreneurs, and anyone in a competitive field. You might hate this book if you prefer collaborative, open-book environments or find military metaphors cold and clinical. If you are looking for a guide on empathy or vulnerability, Sun Tzu is not your man. The One Thing Challenge. Identify one battle you are currently fighting, perhaps a difficult project, a tense relationship, or a competitive pitch. Instead of pushing harder, direct force, find the void. Your homework. Ask yourself, what is one thing my opponent is completely ignoring? Or, what is the path of least resistance here? Spend 15 minutes today planning a move that targets that gap, rather than hitting the wall head-on.